What's going on, everyone? I'm here with Kaylan, and she lives in Namibia. That's on the continent of Africa. Yes, the continent of Africa has many different countries. It's not one country. Just want to make sure to let people know that who always say Africa, Africa, Africa. Anyway, Kaylan, she used to live here, and she also used to work for NBC News, and she decided to move to Namibia and live there. She has a YouTube channel telling us how it is over there. I'm definitely want to definitely ask her questions about that because I'm highly interested. But thank you, Kaylin, for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to share my experience with your audience.
So most people will ask, what made you do it? What made you say, forget America, I'm going to an African nation?
Sure. Well, when I was about 23, I had the opportunity to spend some time abroad in Barbados, which is where my mother's side is from. And what sort of, I would say, got me interested is, as you said, I did used to work for NBC News, their Washington bureau. And working there, I was pretty much exposed to like a lot of international current events, a lot of international news. And I sort of started realizing that I had this interest in, just international, things. And so anyway, I went on a trip when I was still working at NBC, just a vacation with a good friend of mine. We went to Barbados. I had a phenomenal time. And the main thing that really, struck me was just how phenomenal it was to experience life in a black governed, predominantly black nation. And so that is sort of what got me interested in living abroad. Long story short, that was in 2007. In 2010, I ended up, basically moving here to Namibia. After I spent time living in Barbados, I did have to come back to the U.S. to take care of an ill relative. But all throughout that, I still wanted to live abroad. The U.S. pretty much just bored me. Corporate America bored me. I just once I spent time in Barbados, it was like I couldn't get living in a black country out of my mind. And so I started researching opportunities, how to live outside of the U.S. again. And I came across an organization that basically offered the opportunity to teach abroad. And I was specifically looking for opportunities to live and work in Africa. And I found this organization called World Teach. And then I applied, I got accepted. I chose their Namibia program. And just after doing a little bit of research, I figured Namibia was a good option for me. There weren't that many programs in Africa with that program. Basically, it was my options were Namibia, Tanzania, and Rwanda at the time. And Rwanda, I had my own stereotypes, misconceptions, I would say. So I wasn't that comfortable going there at the time. Of course, now I would definitely go to Rwanda in a heartbeat. The Tanzania program, I had missed the deadline. And so after doing a little bit of research and seeing it was above South Africa, I, chose Namibia. And that's how I ended up here. And that was in 2010.
Okay, so when you first got to Namibia, here in America, we have all this racial tension going on a lot of times. How did it feel to go from that climate, that we have here in America at times, to just an all black nation where you have none of that?
Well, initially, it felt amazing, of course. I mean, number one, I mean, there's this sort of, it's sort of cliche, but I mean, I do think there's some truth to the fact that as an African American, the first time that you land on the continent, generally, I would say most of us probably are just sort of like overwhelmed with this, just this amazing feeling like I finally made it. And so, initially it was just fantastic. But I would say over the time, Namibia has a history with apartheid, and it's very closely linked to South Africa and their history as well. So as a result of that, there are actually a lot of white Namibians, and there is definitely racism in Namibia. So I have to be honest and say that, unfortunately, moving to Namibia does not mean the end of dealing with racism. And I actually wrote an article about this on my website. But moving to Namibia does not mean the end of racism. I've experienced racism, here, and things are extremely, unequal in terms of the economy and socioeconomics. But overall, most of the country, you're not going to run into, that many white people. That's mainly in the capital and some of the, a few of the larger cities. But most of the country, you're not really going to interact with white Namibians. And so it's pretty much really nice to be in a place where, yeah, you don't have to really deal with any of that. So, and that's probably, the case for most of the continent. But yeah, so.
Oh, we see, in America when we speak up against, what we coin here on this channel, Blackphobia, which is the intense fear and hatred of black people. We speak up against the black phobics in this nation. The first thing they tell us to do is to go back to Africa. But you're telling me that where you're at, Namibia, that white folks are there too. So can we go
Oh,
in? Well, can we go anywhere where we just got black people?
no. I mean, yeah,
Well, I guess that
Namibia.
beat that go back to Africa argument, I guess, right?
Exactly. Yeah, this is a unique country, I would say, in terms of the entire continent. Namibia, South Africa, their histories with apartheid really have created like a very unique situation, and as well as Zimbabwe. But that you see what Robert Mugabe sort of how he handled it. But Namibia and South Africa really do still have a very economically powerful white presence in both of the countries, and so I know a lot of the continent, it's probably not as pronounced as it is here. And then North Africa, they have their own issues as well with racism. I would, but that's a whole nother story. But so yeah.
So outside of, unfortunately having to deal with racism, even in the continent that we're always told to go back to, but here in the States, of course, um, how is it when you first moved there, like about finding, they say, you know what, I need to stay somewhere. What's the difference in the average apartment, like in Namibia, they say you want to stay there, versus an average one bedroom apartment? I mean, I don't know where you used to stay here in the States. Maybe
Yeah.
it's more expensive than others. What's the average price?
Well, that depends on the type of neighborhood, I would say, just as it is in the States.
Hmm.
But like right off the bat, I mean, just thinking about most Americans would probably, want to initially, well, I don't know, I'm generalizing, but right off the bat, just thinking, okay, where I live right now, I'm paying, well, I don't want to, okay, I'm paying 5,000 Namibian dollars per month. And when you sort of convert that into US dollars, and this is just for rent alone, when you convert that, I don't know what the current exchange rate is. I haven't been paying attention. It might be around 13, but you would divide like the 5,000 by 13, and so that would kind of give you what I pay. Usually I would say rent from my standards is about between 400, maybe 600 US dollars a month. Then there are things like, of course, utilities like water, cable television, my internet. For example, my internet is like unlimited at home. I have Wi-Fi, and we pay, maybe it's about 70 or 80 US dollars a month, and that includes like a telephone line that we rarely use. For electricity, I'm trying to think how much I should have had these numbers ready. But for electricity, maybe in 2 weeks we might spend 30 US dollars, maybe more, maybe less. So I mean, coming to Namibia with US dollars, you definitely can live pretty comfortably.
Okay, now, I know some people who's from Ghana, and I heard it's pretty good to go there, which is what that's definitely one of the first countries I wanted to go to is Ghana. Have you been there?
No, I haven't.
You haven't yet. Okay, because I heard the economy's pretty good up there, and they doing well. But in Namibia itself, like if a person says, man, I really want to go, I'm inspired right now. Kaylan is living there. What's the first thing they need to do that maybe they probably wouldn't think about when they get there?
The main thing with here, if you want to, is like greeting, just a very basic, thing. If you want to show, if you want to be polite and not rude in Namibian culture, is just greetings. Like if you go to a store, if you enter a doctor's office, if you're interacting with a cashier, if you're seeing someone, just saying, hi, how are you? Letting them ask you in response. That's a big part of the culture here. But I would say the country, Namibians are very friendly. So, and a lot of times they refer to Africa as the motherland, actually. So,
Oh, really? Now, so basically, what you're telling me is
yeah,
Namibians are kind of like Southern culture, because in the South, we do that a lot.
definitely. Definitely,
Yeah, because
exactly.
when I
Yeah,
leave the
definitely.
South and then I go to a East Coast and then people just looking at you crazy if you speak to them like, what's wrong with you? Because you just grew up like that all your
Right.
life. So,
Exactly.
so that's awesome. Now, what about the schools?
Yeah.
Let's say if a person say,
Yeah.
okay, how's the schools?
Okay, so there are, I would say, kind of like two different options. You can have your child in a government school, which is what we would call a public school, or you could have your child in a private school. A lot of the government schools, the public schools, are sort of understaffed, under-resourced. You run into those issues. I actually, when I first moved here, I came as a teacher, and so I taught at a school. I remember it was a school that was one of those public government schools that really, was under-resourced, I would say. And so that means, I remember I had a class. There was one point in the school year where I was teaching a class in the cafeteria because there were not enough classrooms available for all the new students that the school had that semester. So I was teaching a class in the cafeteria, and there were at least two or three other teachers that had to teach their classes in this giant cafeteria at the same time. So there were like four classes being taught in the cafeteria at the same time because there just weren't enough classrooms. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So those, sort of like staffing issues, resourcing issues are the things that you run into in a lot of the country's government schools. Not all. Usually the schools are better resourced when they're, in the larger cities or in the capital city. But, most of Namibia is more rural, more small town. And so the government schools are, just have less resources. And then the private schools, are pretty excellent from what I can see. Of course, you would pay money and things like that. There are, international. There's an international school, I believe it's called, in Windhoek, the capital. And so, you don't run into the same issues naturally that you would with the government schools in a private school.
So in Namibian culture, when it comes to education, how are
Mhm.
they focused on education there? Is it the number one priority? Is it taken like very lax like it is a lot of times, especially within our community and within the states? How is it?
Well, from what I've seen, education is really a big deal. I remember, and just going off of like the students that I used to teach. I mean, this is just my perspective. Many Namibians, might see some of their students, may call them lazy, or not all Namibians would call them lazy, but I've seen, Namibians kind of say like, oh, some of the people that I worked with say, oh, these students are not trying hard enough. And I guess when you're coming from the U.S. and yeah, you've seen the way a lot of American students can be, and then you see how the students here are, you're like, no, 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 like these students are really trying their hardest with the little that they have. I mean, a lot of some of the main barriers with students here is generally their level of English speaking. Their first language is in their mother tongue. But my experience is like I always, for the most part, of course, in any I think country or culture, you're going to have students that slack off and things like that.
Mm.
But I was always, and American friends of mine were always pretty taken aback by just um, the like a thirst almost, for learning and for wanting to succeed and things like that. And that's just something that I didn't really, when I compare it to American students, it's like night and day. Children here, they may not have as many opportunities, but just their thirst like for knowledge in the school that I worked in, and many students that I've seen, is just really touching, I would say, because they just, to me, value education. So I would say the country definitely values education, but the government recognizes the challenges that really, the barriers that are existing for so many students here. And there are so many students that don't graduate, and it's not because I would say education is not valued here. It's just because of, things like I mentioned, just the lack of resources, and a lot of times not enough teachers, and many teachers just taking jobs as teachers, but that's not necessarily their passion. So the motivation is sort of affected, and that trickles down to the students. And there's just a wide variety of issues that go into, the school system here, and why it is the way it is, and why the students' levels of education are where they're at. But definitely the students here can really, to me, overall, really touch you, and just their desires to do well.
Let's talk about family in Namibia. In America, it's definitely with our family, structure and African American. We having issues. We having a lot of kids being born out of wedlock. People don't want to get together and build families like they used to. Now, how is it in Namibian culture when it comes to family, like getting married, staying together?
Well, yeah. It's kind of like it's a little bit tricky to like just I guess lump the country into one because it is actually like a very diverse country with various tribes, and all of the tribes are different. But I would say, just roughly, family is definitely very important here. Um, Overall, I mean, my husband's tribe is the tribe that I have the most experience with and can speak the best on, and his tribe is actually the majority tribe, I would say, in the country.
Hmm.
But family is, it's just extremely important. I can see in his tribe, respect for elders extremely important. Getting married is very is really like highly revered, I would say, and it's a big deal. Weddings are a big deal. Married couples are really viewed, I would say, with a lot of respect, and taking care of your family. Like my husband and I don't live with his parent with his immediate relatives, but still, that doesn't mean that he just forgets about them. That doesn't mean that he would ever, like people here don't really like put family in nursing homes that much, although there are nursing homes. It's just very, I would say, like a very family, in a way, family oriented society, and it's something that is definitely very important. There are issues such as teenage pregnancy and things like that, and those are not really cut and dry issues. They're to me just trickle down effects of the country's history, and the country has not been independent for that long, just a few years, over 20 years. So there are those issues with teenage pregnancies. There are issues with domestic violence. That's always kind of a reoccurrent topic in Namibian current events, and I think in my opinion, that also trickles down, just from the country's history and the various socioeconomic struggles that really still exist, and the income, the vast disparities in wealth. Uh, but overall, yeah, family is definitely, from my vantage point, definitely important.
Now, if people want to get involved with real estate, let's say in Namibia, and they say, I want to go buy some property out there, they probably say, I want to build a house. Is it expensive to build out there? Because I was watching one of your videos, and you were saying that the land in Namibia is just like skyrocketing, and I'm trying to figure out why is that? Because there's some natural resources that they're trying to get, or what?
No, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, that a lot of people, here have. Like, why should the prices of land and real estate be so high in Namibia? Like that's what we're all trying to figure out, because it just doesn't seem like it should be this way. Um, but I would say, as a foreigner, if you come, money talks anywhere. And if you come here with enough money, you can definitely purchase a piece of land. Having US dollars definitely makes, or coming from a country with, American currency, obviously your money carries you pretty far, from a lot further than people here that make Namibian dollars, would go. But yeah, it's definitely the cost of land is here is pretty high compared to, I would say, real estate and land in West Africa, unfortunately. And so that's a big issue here in the news as we speak. But if you have the money, you could definitely come here. You spend more money in the capital, in the larger cities, than you would spend in the rural areas. The rural areas, you're going to run into issues like no electricity and having to put in, maybe water and things like that. But in the capital right now, the average property is at least, I don't know, maybe 200,000, 300,000, somewhere around there, like US dollars. and that's completely unaffordable, like for most Namibians. But that's kind of what you can expect to pay, and that's just, kind of the basic. And I don't know, like, why things are the way they are, and I'm not like an economics analyst, but it shouldn't be this way. I've looked on the internet at other countries just out of curiosity to see what other African nations are paying, and unfortunately, Namibia has one of the um, most bizarre housing markets in the world, actually, and prices have really skyrocketed, particularly over the last decade, which a lot of people don't know because a lot of people aren't familiar with this country, and it's not really in the news that much. So yeah.
So you said earlier that you had got bored with the United States. What got you bored with this country?
Um, I don't know. I mean, number one, I guess just the energy that you get when you're in a black country, it's just totally different. Um, and so when in comparison, when you're in the US and you're going to, your 9 to 5 every day, and, maybe interacting with people that don't have this international interest and things like that, it's boring to me. I was just like, I'm not really, there aren't enough people around me that are like-minded. And just the entire vibe of the US, like I was bored with it basically. And I had the travel itch, as they say.
Hmm.
And really just, like, this is small, but even the weather, the winter, I don't like cold weather. My experiences in Barbados, it's like being in a warm, temperature, even things like that, just something as small as that, made a difference to me. And so I was just, and corporate America, definitely. I mean, that's like a beast, in and of itself. And I was not really impressed with a lot of the stuff that I saw, the race relations and things like that. And for someone that is sort of, I don't know what to call myself, conscious, but for someone that has a interest in international life, it's particularly in a black country, you can't really discuss those things without getting a side eye, from colleagues.
Hmm.
Like, it just isn't really like, corporate America is not a productive environment for someone that had the interests that I had. And so I was just, yeah, pretty much all around kind of sick and tired and bored. And I just wanted to get out of the US.
So there's few people maybe like, okay, I'm interested now. What is the best practices other than getting your passport? If they actually wanted to come to a different African nation, like how did you prepare yourself outside of, you went to Barbados, you had the itch to do it a lot more, but a person that's never done it before here in the U.S., because a lot of people saying that if Donald Trump get elected, they want to leave.
Right.
So for those who want to leave, there's a lot of people, not just black people, want to leave and may want to come to an African nation. What's the things they need to have on their checklist before they get there?
Well, I would say, definitely start out with a visit. More than one visit, I would say, and not like a 2 week visit to a country. Try, I did a video about this. The video on my YouTube channel is about job hunting on the African continent.
Hmm.
But number one, it's really important, especially if you've never experienced, life on the continent, or life even in a Caribbean country, because there are similarities I've noticed between life in the Caribbean and life on the continent. But if you really, haven't had that much experience living outside of the U.S. in a black country, number one, take an extended visit to the country itself. And so you find out what's the longest amount of time that you can stay in this country on a visitor's visa or a tourist visa. That's really, the main thing. A 2 week vacation is not going to cut it. And also in the video that I did, I talked about, sort of making the visit a bit targeted. Like, try to maybe, start, like, when you get here, look in the newspapers, because newspapers are very sort of popular form of information sharing still on the continent. And so look in the classified section, get an idea of what the real estate costs are, get an idea of the different types of jobs that, you see, or industries that you see, that are, advertising positions or opportunities or business opportunities. And, really, if you decide, like, take some time and experience the rural areas, the smaller towns, take some time and experience the capital. try to set up meetings, if you can, with, an expert in the field that you may be interested in, just to get advice. Definitely at home in the U.S., I would encourage mingle with Africans, go to events, talk to them about your interests. You never know, who might know who, and who might have a family member on the continent that you could visit the country with, and have that travel experience be from a really intimate perspective than just, as a tourist, I would say. So networking, I would say, and I hate the term networking, because I find networking to be a bit like obnoxious, like, and annoying, like it's just not my thing. But you do have to do it to a certain extent. But I would say make an extended visit here, and just get a feel for the society, and just figure out, what are the different opportunities and the different sectors that are growing. Save money, of course. Your U.S. dollars will take you a lot further here on the continent than they will in the U.S. Mingle with Africans back home, ask them their advice and things like that. But I really, and what I did was I came with an organization. Volunteering is an option if you come here, or as a volunteer, as a teacher, or something like that, to get your feet wet in the society, to get yourself immersed in the culture and figure out what you can do, from there, and who you can meet from there, and use the internet. Just Googling phrases about the country, and things like that. Work in the Gambia, nursing opportunities in the Gambia, whatever your interests are. And just, but the visit is the most important, and maybe not even just one visit, maybe two. And it really is affordable, in my opinion, for many Americans, to save up money if you're working to visit the continent. If you're a student, definitely take advantage of the study abroad opportunities. That's something I really wish I had done, because you be just by default, by being here as an American, you stick out once people hear your accent, and you're going to meet people, and you'd be surprised, the opportunities and things and things that you're going to learn about actually the possibility of living in the country, and how you might be able to maneuver into it. And I've mentioned immigration agents in my YouTube video as well. That's something you do have to be careful with, because there are scammers. Some governments say, oh, we don't, some immigration government agencies on the continent may say things like, well, we don't work with, immigration agencies. You have to apply for various permits directly through us. That can be a little bit murky. But if you find a reputable immigration agent, and again, asking reputable people for their, recommendations of a reputable immigration agent, agents can be also very helpful in terms of maneuvering with a visa and getting your visa, approved, for whether it's a business visa or whatever, and just getting information about what is the process for foreigners in terms of moving to the continent. And also, I see so many, people like the Chinese on the continent, and from my understanding, and from what I see, their visas and their business visas are just, really automatically, a lot of the time, just turned over, and they're approved like really quickly. And perhaps with the African American dollar, and more of us showing interest and coming here with those just basic types of business ideas that they're coming with, they come with, they open up these like China shops that are like dollar stores, I would say. Things like that, like just if there was an increased influx of us coming with money, perhaps we could, at some point down the line, be welcomed in terms of business opportunities as easily as Chinese are across the continent.
About this country, actually, and it's sad. No, it's sad. I'm just hearing about this country, except through you. Really, I've never even heard about it, and because we aren't educated about different African nations in this country at all. All they tell us is Africa, Africa,
Yeah,
Africa, and that's the biggest problem with our
exactly.
education system here. They dumb us down. It's stupid.
It's true. It's definitely,
It's very stupid. So if we
yeah.
wanted to open up an advice show media in Namibia, they would be welcome to something like that.
Well, of course, a lot of the priority goes to nationals. You know what I mean? Like, because there is such high unemployment in this country, for example, and in many African countries. So I would say, yeah, for example, if you wanted to, like, what I would recommend that you would do would be, when you come here for your extended visit, to definitely come and meet with, for example, set up a meeting with the local national TV station, just like an expert in that area, just to get an idea of, what route could you possibly take, or something like that here in Namibia if you wanted to bring what you do there here. The key is really word of mouth, speaking to people and getting their advice. But yeah, when I talk about, when I mentioned, the high unemployment rate, like I basically say that because there are so many people here without jobs, work visas can be very difficult to get approved, unfortunately, at least in Namibia. This is a huge continent, so I can't speak for the entire continent. But a lot of the times the immigration agents, the government is not keen on approving, work visas. It can just be a huge, struggle. So definitely business visas are definitely, I would say, and starting a business is a good route to take, unless you already have some direct opportunity to move here, like I did with the organization that I came here with. Coming with a business idea, I think it would definitely be viewed upon more positively than just coming and trying to get a job that a local Namibian would need.
Oh no. We was talking about like actually, for instance, let's say we got the capital, we want to expand, like actually starting, like I say what we do here over there and hiring Namibians to do the job. That's what I was talking about. Um,
Oh, well,
yeah,
I'm sure that
not
would
going there
be,
trying to get a
yeah,
job. No.
definitely. I'm sure that would be
So it'd be like the
right.
Chinese. You're going there on a business deal.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, it just broke up a little bit, but you said like the Chinese.
Yes, they're going on the guys of business because, like I said, because over here we believe in entrepreneurship. We don't believe in we're not about to go to the continent of Africa and talk about work for somebody. Oh no, we gotta do for self. Even over
Right.
there. So, cause that's one of the things that I have in my heart is that even expand into the African nations of what we do, and want to hear what actually go on in these different African nations that the mainstream media don't like to report at all, positive, negative, or in between.
Right.
So that's
Exactly.
so that's good to know. That's good to know. We'll definitely keep that in mind. Now, about these immigration agencies, do you on your website have reputable immigration agencies that we here can go to and say, okay, we'll go through Kaylan's website because we know the people are vetted there.
Yeah, there's one. I think India is like it's a geographically large country, but the population is only just over 2 million. So, there aren't like a plethora of immigration agencies to work with. But there is one that I can definitely, recommend if someone is serious. Like I've worked with them before, and I've gotten a, work permit through them before. And I'm actually working with them now as it relates to my status here since I was married in 2014. Unfortunately, that process is taking a long time. I'm not sure what's really going on, but they are reputable. So there's, in terms of providing, you would need A, B, C, and D, and they would tell you exactly what you needed, for a certain fee. I would definitely recommend them. If someone is interested, I would, forward the information to them.
So since you now if you become a Namibian citizen, that doesn't revoke your American citizenship, correct?
No, well, no, I can't get dual citizenship. What I get here is something called domicile.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I'm not giving up my American passport, basically. I just get something called domicile. And after a certain number of years, of living here, I'd be eligible for permanent residency.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right. 'Cause I was just trying to find out if you become a citizen, then okay. So now I know. Because like I said, this is education for me, and I want to make sure I ask the questions that the audience possibly would know if they want to. Because I've heard some people say that it's good to go over there maybe for if you can for a few months and then come back here for a few months if you can, just going back and forth just to kind of see. Do you recommend that?
Yeah, that can be really pricey. That's the, I mean, it depends. Like, if you have the money to do that, I guess you could do that. That just to me would be very pricey, and I don't know. Like maybe it's kind of cool to talk about that. Like maybe if it was like half of the year, but to
Mm-hmm.
like okay for a tourist visa here, the maximum amount of time that you can stay is 3 months. So
Okay.
for me, like I wouldn't want to have to go back every 3 months. Like that would just be a bit exhausting and very expensive. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so 3 months. That's as long as you can stay because I have some brothers that say that they want to go to different African nations and find them a wife. So I'm asking for them brothers as well.
Right.
you know. And there may be some sisters that want to go
Okay.
over there and find them a husband. I don't know. Just the chatter they go on. So that's why I'm just asking these questions for people because they're like, why didn't you ask her this and why didn't you ask her that? They want to ask 100 million questions. But for people who want to ask Kayla more questions, you can ask her in the comment section, or you can email her or go to her website. Kaylin, what is the website that people need to go to so they can get all the information they need?
My website is aainafrica.com. That's AAINAFRICA, aainafrica.com. The title of the website is African American in Africa, so that's what the AA stands for. And I also have a YouTube channel. It's Afro American in Africa. That's AFRO, American in Africa. And on my website, I write articles as well as I also post interviews that I do with African Americans who are living on the continent of Africa.
Awesome. That's definitely very interesting. I want everyone to go to her website, AA in Africa, and also the YouTube channel because I watched some of her videos. They're very interesting. Some things I was very impressed with. Some things I was like, oh, they need to catch up. Kind of like on them cell phones. I'm used to my unlimited 4G, unlimited minutes, and I saw you say some of the cell phones was kind of like back in the day when phones first came out. So many minutes. Like, what minutes? I don't know what that is. So y'all need to catch
I
up a little
know.
bit.
It's so annoying. Like, yeah, that is a problem. I mean, if only they just had like affordable, unlimited cell phone plans, but that really hasn't hit here yet. Like, not even nights and weekends is hit here.
Oh, so they don't have nights and weekends. Oh wow.
No, they don't have that yet.
So how much? Well, say I'm just curious. How much does an unlimited plan cost out there per month?
70, might be 70 US. I could be wrong, so I guess don't quote me on that. Yeah, I would have to look at the plan.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right, good deal. So, well, Kaylin, I definitely want to thank you for joining us on the program today, giving us all the great information. If anybody would like to speak to Kaylin, like I said, you can go to her website, go join her on YouTube as well. Subscribe to her channel. Please subscribe. She does a lot of nice videos, just good quality videos. Yes, I saw you do good quality, so very
Oh, right.
interesting.
No,
Yeah,
it's not your quality.
hey, it's interesting and everything. So yeah, check it out in case you want to go to a different African nation. And her information, for what I've seen, is just good, just for if you want to go to any African nation, not just Namibia. To just give you just a little heads up on what you may get out there. So, Kaylin, thank you for your time and sharing with the audience for people that possibly want to go to an African nation, including myself, because I will be going as well in a few years.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I would just encourage everyone to really try to make a visit to an African country. And, I know the Caribbean is phenomenal, but don't limit, to that. There's so much to see across this continent. It's like amazing. And thank you for having me and for your show and just for the interest.
All right. Thank you, Kaylin.